Speaker, Assistant Secretary David J. Redl.
Lest we make news, I'm not going to speak with the President. I'm going to speak at the President's National Security and Telecom Advisory Committee, which is also important, but it's definitely not an overwhelming. It's good to be here with so many people that I've known for basically my entire career. Dave Snowden was just reminding me that he likes to tell people how I once interned for him, which is within the, it's close enough to accurate that we'll say yes. And this town is very funny because the person I interned right before I went to CTIA is now one of my deputy assistant administrators. So be nice to your interns, you never know where they'll end up. Thanks, Rick. Thanks to Dick Wiley for inviting me to be here also, and to the Media Institute for having me here to speak. Many of you in the room are likely familiar with NTIA, but we always like to remind you what we do. For those who aren't, we're the agency within the Department of Commerce that is the principal advisor to the President on telecommunications and information policy. And that means we're involved in a broad range of activities. But our mission is really focused in three areas. One, we manage the federal government's use of radio frequency spectrum and work to expand the use of spectrum by all users. Two, we seek to expand broadband access and encourage adoption of broadband across the country. And we work to ensure that the internet remains an engine for innovation and economic growth. Our work has a lot in common with that of the Media Institute, and I want to thank all of you for what you do to defend freedom of speech and foster a competitive communications industry. Freedom of expression is a basic human right and a bedrock American principle. And at NTIA, our approach to internet policy has this principle at its core. We're focused on protecting and promoting an open internet, advocating for the free flow of information, and strengthening the global marketplace for digital products and services. The internet has become what it is today because of a long-standing bipartisan consensus around the principle of multi-stakeholder policymaking and standards development, and the idea that all stakeholders should participate in open and transparent decision-making. I'd be remiss if I didn't. Where'd Larry go? There he is, right in front of me. I was like, look for the tallest guy in the room, and it just didn't expect you right in front of me. I'd be remiss if I didn't know that this long-standing policy goes as far back as when Larry Irving was the administrator of NTIA. And so thank you for all the work you did to help lay the groundwork for what we do today. We have to continue to fight for this principle. The internet is open, interoperable, and governed through collaboration between all stakeholders. I recognize that the open nature of the internet comes with a variety of challenges, though. Governments around the world must address serious security, law enforcement, and privacy issues. In some countries, governments are responding with restrictive and isolationist policies. These include censorship, blocking, imposing a right to be forgotten, and requiring localized data storage. These actions are sometimes understandable, but ultimately they are regrettable. What happens is global companies end up getting caught in the middle, and these conflicting policies become a problem as they work to compete in inconsistent legal demands, and users suffer from diminished access and benefits as a result. I'm optimistic that governments will ultimately realize that it's in everyone's interest to keep the internet open and keep data flowing around the world. The key will be whether civil society, industry, and forward-looking voices in government are able to effectively highlight the benefits of a global internet, to persuade those on the other side of the debate that the challenges of the free flow of data are far outweighed by the benefits. NTIA participates in multi-stakeholder discussions to find workable policy solutions to these problems, including at the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network. We continue to work with our international partners to develop a common view on the technologies and trends that will shape the future internet-enabled economy. NTIA remains a strong participant at ICANN as the United States government's representative to the Governmental Advisory Committee, the GAC, as we all lovingly call it. And we support the continued evolution of the annual Internet Governance Forum, where we work with stakeholders of all types to share best practices and exchange information on internet governance and policy issues. NTIA is also making preparations for the International Telecommunications Union's Treaty-Making Conference, the Plenipotentiary, Plenipot, which is scheduled for this October and November. I believe the United States needs to press for changes at the ITU, including establishing effective membership oversight. We need to push back against efforts to move the ITU beyond its limited mandate and into internet-related and cybersecurity matters. The ITU must effectively and efficiently perform its vital functions in the area of radio communications, and it must foster, not hinder, pro-competition policies for telecom, particularly in developing countries. The ITU has 5 elected positions for those that are not familiar: the Director General, the Deputy Director General, and the directors of the 3 bureaus of the ITU. And I'm pleased to reiterate NTIA's strong support for the candidacy of Doreen Bogdan-Martin as the Director of the ITU Telecommunications Development Bureau. The D sector, as we lovingly call it, is the portion of the ITU that brings connectivity to parts of the world that don't yet realize the economic and societal benefits that we have with the connectivity that we take for granted. Ms. Bogdan-Martin also happens to be a former NTIA employee, which means we are behind her for many reasons, but having somebody who's a homer is also something that makes us happy. She's a veteran of the ITU processes, and I'm certain that Doreen is the best candidate for the job. I'm happy to throw all of our support behind her as she goes forth and tries to become the head of the D sector. And I hope you all will help us as well. Moving to broadband, as we work to cement our vision of the internet around the world, we're also focusing on getting everyone in the United States connected. There are still too many people across the country that lack access to reliable, affordable broadband internet service, a problem that's particularly acute in rural America. While there are many facets to the digital divide, one of the toughest challenges is getting broadband networks deployed in rural areas with difficult terrain and low population density. Progress has also been slowed by bureaucracy, including expensive and lengthy application processes and regulatory reviews. That's why a key part of the administration's strategy for expanding broadband deployment is removing barriers that slow or block new projects. NTIA is working to improve federal coordination around this goal through an interagency working group that we co-chair with the Department of Agriculture's Rural Utility Service. Our group is focusing in 3 areas. First, federal permitting. We're looking at what's required to place broadband facilities on federal lands, with the goal of streamlining permitting efforts and establishing consistency across all the federal agencies. The second is federal funding of broadband projects. The group will report on the effectiveness of various federal programs and will make recommendations on how to better coordinate funding streams. The third area for the working group is leveraging federal assets. In January, President Trump issued a memorandum instructing the Interior Department to develop a plan to increase access to tower facilities and other infrastructure assets that the department manages. This effort, and others like it across the federal government, could potentially lower the cost of build-out and encourage infrastructure development in rural parts of America. The digital divide has persisted for years, but the reasons behind it have always been changing. By better understanding where we are now, we'll better be able to fix it. We need, in order to do our jobs, accurate, reliable data and data analysis to properly inform decisions within the federal government as well as private sector decisions, reduce regulatory barriers, and coordinate federal programs that fund broadband infrastructure. We need to be able to aggregate existing information with data from multiple sources and multiple outlets across states that are using innovative ideas to harness deployment coverage that may or may not be reflected in the FCC's Form 477 data. Congress has asked NTIA to work with the FCC and the states to update the broadband map with more diverse data sources in an effort to produce a more accurate assessment of broadband capabilities and provide a tool for policymakers to better target the funds that are allocated to broadband. NTIA has long been a leader in collecting and analyzing broadband adoption data and using that data to develop good policy. We have decades of experience analyzing broadband in the United States, and we've seen real results from the work that our Broadband USA program has done, cultivating relationships with state and local government officials who spend their time thinking about how to bring broadband to their constituencies. Many states have also been willing to take on the difficult challenges of compiling worthwhile data and maintaining their own broadband maps. Broadband USA also works with communities to identify resources and provide technical assistance, and we've helped more than 250 communities around our country develop public-private partnerships to meet their connectivity needs and digital inclusion goals. Through events, webinars, and other activities, Broadband USA is bringing together important decision makers at the federal, state, and local level, along with the private sector folks who can help bridge the digital divide in their communities. Our efforts to unlock broadband infrastructure build-outs will have knock-on effects for the deployment of the next generation of wireless technology as well. Our nation's broadband needs are increasingly wireless, whether it's 5G technologies that promise to deliver dramatic increases in wireless broadband speeds and bandwidth, or the unlicensed technologies we place in our homes, businesses, and communities. Wireless broadband is paving the way for advanced manufacturing, more advanced healthcare services, and public safety communications. America is the world leader in Wi-Fi and in 4G LTE, and we're among the leaders in bringing 5G to reality. It's essential to American competitiveness that we don't fall behind in either of these areas. America's wireless industry is already making significant investments in preparation for 5G deployment, but they're also calling on government to act, and we need to heed their call. In order to ensure 5G leadership, the entire government must work in a coordinated fashion to support the 5G push. And from our perspective at NTIA, this support will take 4 forms: making spectrum available, removing obstacles to broadband deployment, ensuring we have a collective strategy to secure 5G networks, and collaborating on the global standards that will define 5G and how this race unfolds. NTIA's most important responsibility will be finding enough spectrum to support competitive, ubiquitous, and secure 5G in America. Spectrum is the invisible infrastructure of our digital world, and it not only enables our mobile society, but it helps power many of the critical functions of the federal government, including national defense, atmospheric monitoring, air traffic control, and space exploration. So while we're moving as fast as possible to get more spectrum in the hands of the private sector innovators, it's our job at NTIA to make sure we are balancing that need with the needs of our national government users who perform critical national security functions every day. NTIA works hand in glove with the Federal Communications Commission to get that right. We've been encouraged by the FCC's recent actions to ease regulations that impede deployment of wireless facilities, establish auction rules for 24 and 28 gigahertz, and seek more efficient use of 2.5, a band that I literally spent my first days in this industry working on as an FCC engineer. So these are the kinds of actions that I'm really happy to see will help America be the first to 5G. As we look to achieve a balanced spectrum landscape, efficiency is the name of the game, and we're actively identifying and studying ways and spectrum bands that can be made available for more commercial uses. Our approach historically has been to move out incumbents, make way for commercial, but it's expensive and it's time consuming, as all of you know. And it's becoming more difficult as demand grows and the obvious candidates for relocation have dried out. So we're focusing on using advances in technology to increase efficiency and share spectrum to make sure we're getting the maximum benefit. Make no mistake, sharing is complex too, as my engineers keep reminding me. But we've made significant progress as a result of the relationships and trust developed between industry and government. NTIA's Spectrum team has spent years establishing those relationships, and I'm lucky to have an impressive team in both our Office of Spectrum Management and at the Institute for Telecommunications Sciences out in Boulder, Colorado, who continue to work day in and day out to meet our country's needs. Speaking of ITS, it's home to world-leading experts in spectrum and telecom research. Engineers from ITS and OSM are both working hard to bring to life the sharing model for the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum that the FCC dubbed the Citizens Broadband Radio Service. It's what they're working on, the 2 components, the spectrum access system and the environmental sensing capability, are critical components to making these 5G efforts drive forward and making the spectrum available to meet our country's spectrum needs. ITS is collaborating with all interested stakeholders to certify those systems and make sure that these 2 systems, which will describe how commercial uses can coexist with military radars, are brought to market. As we move aggressively to stand up 5G networks across the country, we must be equally aggressive in our efforts to secure them. The President made clear that secure 5G is part of this country's national security strategy, and it's something we take very seriously at NTIA. Once these networks are active, it's hard to think of a sector of our economy that won't be impacted by them. We're already impacted in so many sectors day to day in our 4G and Wi-Fi networks, and 5G with increased throughput and faster latency and hopefully more ubiquity will be even more of a challenge. We cannot afford to put that security on the back burner, and we have to have a plan from the outset. As a government, we're looking to collaborate broadly with industry to assess and identify gaps and opportunities in the development of global standards. These fights are won and lost in standards bodies, as so many of you know, and we're thankful for all of the continued work that the U.S. industry does to make sure these standards bodies produce high-quality results. But as we continue to see other parts of the world being more active in these fields, being more active in standards bodies, it will take a concerted effort on the part of the U.S. government and U.S. industry to continue to show the kind of U.S. leadership that the world has come to expect from us. We want to work with industry on a strategy to ensure that U.S. interests are being adequately represented and our ideas advanced as effectively as possible across the entire standards landscape. And that does mean the entire landscape. In addition to the traditional wireless standards bodies, we need to be engaged with standards initiatives related to the Internet of Things, connected automobiles, and other emerging technologies that will have a heavy influence on the 5G ecosystem. I'm really excited about NTIA's ambitious policy agenda. It's a really fun time to be working in the fields we all work in, and the vital goals we're working on, we're happy to be helping try to achieve them in partnership with our private sector partners. All of you here have perspectives and ideas that can enrich the agenda, and we want to work with you to achieve our national goals. So my door is open. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think is important and what we can do to help. Thank you again for having me here today.
I think we have a couple minutes for questions. How are we doing? 5 minutes, okay. 5 minutes for questions.
Hi, Lynn.
You mentioned there at the end about the importance of cybersecurity for the 5G network, but we haven't yet seen the botnet report. We have gotten somewhat conflicting messages about certain players in China who are seeing this cybersecurity threats. And also, will you be, NTIA following the current USF cybersecurity proceedings?
Okay, so 4 different questions. I'll try to take them in order. In terms of how we're looking at cybersecurity, right, there's a lot of, as you know, there are a lot of parallel efforts going on right now in the federal government. NTIA, our statutory role is to serve as the voice of the executive branch at the FCC. So right now we are working across the federal government to see if there is a set of comments that people would like to make in response to the FCC's NPRM. It would be premature for us to say anything at this point because we haven't gone through the interagency process, but if the federal government does have something to say, it'll be NTIA that will be bringing that together and make sure that we provide comprehensive comments from the executive branch. The botnet report, we're hoping it's going to come out very soon. We released a draft in January, so the broad themes are there. And I think we hit on some of those today, which is cybersecurity and even botnets, when you take a smaller subset of cybersecurity, is not the kind of challenge that can be solved by one player or even one sector. It is a systemic, ecosystem-wide global challenge. And it's going to take a concerted effort on the part of everybody involved, whether it be government actors, private sector actors, individual consumers, to raise the level of security on networks in this country. And I think that's what we've been focusing on. We're getting ready. We've said before, we're looking at ways we can do that through our multi-stakeholder processes. So when we looked at the Internet of Things last year, we looked at ways to determine and provide information on patchability. So consumers know, okay, this device is able to be patched or it's not able to be patched. So they're able to understand the security concerns. We're working now to try to put out something on software or component transparency, which will take a look at what software packages are compiled into different devices. If we've learned some things over the years, it's hard to know when you hear in the news, there's this recent attack and it affects a certain subset of software. If you don't know if that software is in your device, hopefully the company that still makes it is still in business and can provide you an update. But if they're not, as a consumer, you're left on the hook going, I have no idea what's in this thing. So these are the kinds of challenges we're trying to take a look at in a pretty holistic manner at NTIA. Obviously, other parts of the government are taking, different pieces of the puzzle, but we're hoping that the botnet report will come out soon. Good. Yeah?
David, you briefly mentioned privacy. Of course, we're on the cusp of GDPR implementation.
I have noticed.
Those are the heart of my question. Our government has some issues with it, but I'm wondering about your outlook on GDPR and whether there are, in fact, some attributes of that regulatory regimen that we ought to be looking at here.
So at NTIA, government-wide, we're trying to determine the impact GDPR will have and how we'll address it. But at NTIA, we're taking a specific focus on what GDPR means for who is. And for those that are not familiar in this room, I doubt there are many. Who is the portion of the internet that domain registrars take in information about who is the owner of the domain, and then that information can be provided through an open process. GDPR has called into question the ability to continue providing who is data, and we've been working to try and make sure that we don't lose access to this data. Who is an important tool for law enforcement, It's an important tool for intellectual property rights holders who often use that as the first place they go to try and find out who owns a site that's offering infringing products or infringing content. And it's an important piece for cybersecurity researchers. And then one of the things we learned through the process of putting together the botnet report is how many cybersecurity researchers rely on who is data as a starting point for some of the research they do on distributed threats. And so it's really important to us to make sure that we recognize that the Europeans are pressing forward and that they have a legitimate interest in what they're doing in GDPR, but that it has a real impact on American law enforcement, American IP, and American cybersecurity. And we're working hard to try to make sure that who is data stays available post the 25th.
David, thank you very much.